Hi, today I want to talk about the link between breathing and digestion. So breathing, it's interesting. The diaphragm is right here, right? Remember, it's this dome-like structure. It's a muscle. And it's like where you maybe would have put a girdle in the 19 whatever's long time ago, right? This whole area is our diaphragm. And you've got your esophagus, which is where our food goes down into our stomach. You've got your esophagus coming through and poking through your diaphragm. Now, right there, you've got something called a sphincter, cardiac sphincter. Fancy names don't matter. It's just a flap that opens and closes when there's food coming down to go into your stomach. So have you ever experienced GERD or acid reflux or indigestion or that acidy feeling, taste in your throat, any of those things? That is what happens when those symptoms, when that flap is letting acid from the stomach go back up the esophagus. Bummer. It can be a real bummer because it hurts. And often it'll be, sometimes people say it's related to, I ate spicy food, or I overate, or I ate too late. And then they lie down to go to bed and it's like, oh goodness. Now, what's really neat about this and how it links with your diaphragm, which is obviously my favorite topic, you know that by now, is the motion of the diaphragm open and closes this cardiac sphincter. Ha! Isn't that great? So the more we practice using our diaphragm properly with our breath, that will impact how that flap is opening and closing. So it will be a piece of the puzzle. Of course, if you're eating spicy food or doing that before bed or continue to do that, maybe breathing can only help so much, but I'm saying it's a tool that you can use, knowing that that could be a real bonus in helping the symptom. So if you or you know of anyone, great tip. Another thing that's really interesting about the digestion is exactly where it is. So obviously it starts at our mouth and goes to our rectum. We know that. Now, if we think about where all our food gets absorbed in our belly, our small intestine is basically this giant sac in a contained sac. I think of it as a big bag of tubes right behind our belly button. So it's a bit lower. Our stomach's more here and our small intestine's here. And it's quite, as we know, extensive, right? With all those tubes. Now, then you've got your colon. The small intestine links to the large intestine right here. Right here on the right side and goes up, attaches to the diaphragm, goes down, attaches to the diaphragm, and then out this left side down, out your rectum. Now, if you imagine, there is a lot going on in that area. And the cool thing that I learned when I started doing osteopathy and learning was that this tension, if you're someone who carries any tension in this area or has symptoms in this area, then it will affect, guess what? Your back. So often people who experience back issues don't know to link it to maybe what's going on in the front. I'm not saying this is always, but it's something to think about, isn't it? If that's you with some digestive issues and or some back issues, just to make that connection. And it's purely because of anatomy. I'm really good at anatomy because that's how we learn and treat all this stuff. And so anatomically, your small intestine is linked directly in relationship to your vertebrae of your low back, right? And even your right SI joint here is linked with the root of the mesentery. Anyways, fancy words, where the small intestine is really in relationship and attaching through fascia to the tissue of the back. Very cool, right? And maybe a new perspective for you, as I know it was for me. So digestion can be linked to something I always ask about. How is your digestion? And also, we'll talk about the gynecological region as well, is sometimes a lot of people will have their period and have low back pain. Well, we can see why now, because of where our uterus sits in relationship to our low back and our pelvis. So that's for another video though. We'll get into that. This is just to think about digestion, your small intestine, your large intestine, they're in relationship to those vertebrae in your low back and your hips, as well as your cardiac sphincter that has the esophagus poking through the diaphragm with a flap right there. And the diaphragm is in part responsible to its opening and closing. So I hope this has given you something to think about. Maybe it's for yourself, maybe it's for someone you love, but I love to share this information because it makes so much darn sense. So enjoy and let me know if it made any sense to you in the comments. And we'll see you on Thursday for the next Facebook Live. Have a great day. Bye-bye.